Today we're going to be talking about how do you identify and draw a reflection on a coordinate plane. So previously we talked about reflections, other reflections across the y-axis or the x-axis. We also talked about translations. So now we're going to be talking about reflection, still involving the x and y-axis, but not exactly the same way we talked about before. So the first one we're going to talk about is we'll talk about reflect across the y-axis. Across y equals x. What that basically means is we're reflecting across where y is equal to x. So our rule here is going to be, we're going to change the order of the letters, of our numbers. So the y goes in the originally is the second position, or in the back, and it's now going to go in the front. The x, which was originally in the front, is now going to go to the back. So we write it as y comma x. Okay? So basically what that means is if we had this picture here, that was our original graph, then the reflection would be this. Okay? All right? So on the second one, we're going to talk about is y equals, reflect across y equals negative x. So it's still going to be, we're still going to be changing our number, the order of our numbers. However, because there's a negative sign, we have to change the signs. So our rule is x comma y goes to negative y comma negative x. All right, so here we change, not only did we change the order of our numbers, so again the y was originally in the back, now it goes in the front. The x was originally in the front, now it goes in the back. We also changed the signs. Now remember, we talked about this before. When we change the signs, that means that whatever the sign was originally, it now changes to the opposite. So if it was positive, it becomes negative. If it was negative, it becomes positive. It does not mean we always put a negative sign in front of it. If it was negative to begin with, we have to change to a positive. So again, the graph would look something like this. Now you don't have to, this part will be on your graph, will be on the Google slide already for you, but basically this is what it would look like. You start out with this graph here, and it changes into that one, okay? So I'm just gonna erase that real quick, and redraw it. But anyway, yeah, like I said, we're starting on this side, and we're going to this side. All right, so now let's do some examples. So the first one we're going to do is reflection across y equals negative x, and our coordinates are negative 2 comma 5. So as a handy tip, you don't have to do this on the Google slide, but again, it's always a good idea to mark your x and your y. All right, so remember our rule, whenever it's y equals negative x, we talked about that before, it's going to be negative y comma negative x. Meaning that we change the sign, we change the order of our numbers, and we change the signs of our numbers. All right, so our x up here was originally negative 2. When we put it in the back, remember we got to change the sign. So instead of being negative, it's going to become positive. And then our 5 will go in the front, but because it was a positive 5, it now becomes a negative 5. So our answer here is negative 5 comma 2. So remember, we change the order of our numbers, and we change the signs of both x and y. All right, the next one we're going to tackle is reflection across the y-axis. So we talked about this before. Remember, we keep our x, we keep the y, we change the x. So that means that our rule is we keep our y, but we change the x. So it becomes a negative x, or the opposite x. All right, so our x and y again, 8 is our x. So remember, we're going to change it to a positive x because we're changing the sign, because that's what that sign means. We change the sign. And then the y, leaves the same and stays as 1. All right? The next one, number 3, is reflection across the y equals x. All right? So that means here, our rule here is, remember, all we're doing, instead of changing the signs like we did with number 1, we're just going to change the order. So it's going to be y comma x. All right? So all we did was change the order. We didn't change any signs. So here, again, you don't have to label this, but it helps some people. So that means our negative 4 goes in the front and our positive 6 goes in the back. All right. Next one, number 4, reflection across the x-axis. So remember here, we keep our x, but we change the y. So we keep our x, so our x stays the same. Our y now becomes negative y, or the opposite y. All right. So our numbers here are negative 15 and negative 2. So again, we're keeping our x, so that's going to be negative 15 we're changing our y from -2 to +2. All right? So remember, keep our x, change our y. Okay? Next, we have a translation, left 4. So that means that there's no up and down. So that means if it's left 4, that's going to be a -4. So that goes underneath our first term, or x. And you can put a 0 here. You don't have to, but that way you know you're not going to do anything to it. So our rule here is x -4, comma y. Okay, you have to include the y, guys, because you can't just, even though we're not changing it, the rule still states that we're going to change the x part. But again, we still have to talk about what we're going to do with our y. So here, positive 12 minus 4 is 8, and then -10 plus 0 is -10. Okay. And then the last example we're going to work on number 6 is reflection across the y equals -x. Okay, so we just talked about this. This was our very first one we did. So again, label x and y. Remember our rule. It's going to be negative. It's going to be -y, comma -x. Okay, so that means we're changing the order and the signs. So that means the -7 is going to go in the back. But remember, we got to change the sign, so it's going to become +7. And +3 goes in the front, but remember, it's a different number now because we're changing the sign. It becomes -3. So our answer should be -3, comma 7. All right? We have 2 more examples on the front page of our notes. Number 7, it says triangle JKL has been reflected across y equals x. Find J prime. All right? So what we have to do is find J, the regular J, without the prime. So for that one, we have to count over 7 spaces to the left, which makes it -7, and 1 space up. Okay, so that's 1. All right? So again, you can identify your x and y. I'm not going to require you to do that, but you do need to write the J, comma, parentheses, -7, comma, 1, parentheses. All right? Now, remembering that when it's flipped across y equals x, our rule is y, comma, x, meaning that we change the order of our numbers. So J prime, and this is what you need to put in the box as well, is +1 in the front because the y goes now in the front and the x goes in the back, so -7. All right. Number 8, it says triangle ABC is being flipped across y equals -x. Find C prime. So first we got to find C, which the coordinates for C are going to be 5, comma, -3. So again, I counted 5 spaces over to the right and then 3 spaces down. All right? So again, identify your x and y. Remember, our rule here is not only we're going to change the order, we're also going to change the signs. So it's become -x, -y, -x. All right? So C prime is going to be, instead of -3 for our y, it's going to become +3. Instead of +5, it's going to become -5. All right? So that will conclude page 1. Stay tuned for page 2. Make sure you fill out the Google slide, sorry. I'm going to get these one of these days. I'm going to be able to say it correctly. The Google slide as I filled it out. And we'll see each other on the next one. Bye.